Did Alexander Graham Bell even invent the telephone? Let's discuss. I'm going to put this comment into context at the end of this, but a friend said, not to mention AGB stole the phone invention and put his name on it. Kind of like pieces of shit recorded someone else's shitty joke and blew up from it. When I went to look into who actually invented the telephone, there was so much drama that I had to create a table just to keep track of it all. And this is just what I found easily online. I bet there's even more shit that I don't know about with more people that happened in all of this too. So I'm going to go over this chart I made. I'm also going to show the sources on the screen, but they may not align with what I'm actually speaking about. And then after all of that, I'm going to put the comment into context. And with this chart, I did put Alexander Graham Bell first, but I'm going to talk about everybody else first and then come back to Alexander Graham Bell. Disclaimer, I can't pronounce any of these names for shit, so I'm just going to say something. It's probably not the right pronunciation. If you Google this shit, you can figure it out. So in 1849, Antonio Meucci began developing his design of what became the telephone. In 1871, Antonio could not afford a definitive patent, and so he filed for a 1-year renewable notice of an impending patent that he then, later on, could not afford to renew either. In 1874, Antonio had a meeting with Western Union Telegraph Company, but they failed to return his materials. In 1876, Antonio learned that AGB, an employee at Western Union Telegraph who had lost his materials 2 years earlier, had now filed a patent for his invention. Between 1858 and 1863, Johann Philipp Reis produced 3 different prototypes for the telephone. In 1861, Johann recorded and had developed the telephone that was the first recorded conversation in history. In 1875, Alexander Graham Bell was shown one of these prototype phones at the Smithsonian Institution, and it is said that he saw an earlier model as well in 1862. Johann had no interest in profiting off the telephone. He freely gave out information, and he even sold them at a pretty reasonable price. In 1865, Amos Daubert developed a telephone receiver with a permanent magnet. In 1876, Amos patented a type of electric telephone. In 1879, Daubert patented a type of static telephone. In 1882, Amos Daubert created a telegraph that could communicate over a quarter of a mile without wires using conduction in the ground. This was patented in 1886. Now, Elisha Gray had patented a number of telegraphic devices throughout his lifetime. In 1869, Elisha Gray became one of the 2 partners who founded what became Western Electric Company. In 1876, Elisha Gray tried to get Bell's patent suspended via a caveat announcing his intention to file a claim for the same patent. Bell used materials for his telephone transmitter and receiver that were actually developed by Elisha Gray. In 1874, the Western Union was unable to return Antonio Meucci's work to him based on the telephone when Alexander Graham Bell was working there at the time. In 1875, Alexander Graham Bell is confirmed to have had access to Johann Philipp Reis's prototype and thought to have seen an earlier model in 1862. In 1876, Bell patented the telephone without giving credit to anybody else's work that he used or stole. Elisha Gray and Alexander Graham Bell came into direct conflict over Bell being awarded a patent of Gray's specific developments. In 2002, I did not put this on that timeline chart that I've been showing, but in 2002, the U.S. House of Representatives issued a statement saying that Antonio Meucci should be credited as the inventor of the telephone. I mean, this is just all another example of how capitalism does not support innovation. I mean, holy shit. Once you get past ignorance, because many people just don't know about the atrocities of AGB because they were never taught that, but then there are a lot of people who do know. So once you get past the ignorance, you can tell if someone's a capitalist or anti-capitalist by how they feel about Alexander Graham Bell, I think. And I mean, it shouldn't be this surprising to me that somebody who is so dangerous to the deaf community rose in his career in an unethical way. I'm over here like, this is how Darth Vader built the Death Star. AGB is that kid who didn't study for the test, so he just starts putting down all of the answers his classmates are putting. And you know what? He's going to punch you at recess if you don't give him the answers to your test. That's what AGB is like. And this is why I don't get about capitalism, because apparently this type of bullshit fuckery is common in the invention and development communities, right? Like, what incentive is there for regular working people to try and create new shit if someone with more money can just come steal their shit and pay for it and all of a sudden own it? And it's not like I haven't known this has always been happening under capitalism. I just never really thought about how it applied to AGB before. Because Alexander Graham Bell really looked at what other people were doing, and he was like, oh, I like what you did there. And then AGB turns right around, and he's like, hey guys, I created a telephone. All Alexander Graham Bell has to do is now call for the genocide and eugenics against inventors, and they will have gotten the death treatment by him as well. And this brings me back to putting this comment into some context of where it came from. So again, the comment reads, not to mention AGB stole the phone invention and put his name on it. Kind of like pieces of shits recorded someone else's shitty joke and blew up from it. So right now on TikTok, and a problem within the deaf community is there's a specific trend going viral for a sound where you joke about a deaf person dying when you use it. And so this comment is left on a video where I do a reading from Alexander Graham Bell's memoir upon the formation of a deaf human race. And I was discussing how all of that joke is rooted in the eugenics and genocide against our people, which was made popular by Alexander Graham Bell. So now you are all caught up. No, Alexander Graham Bell wasn't the person who actually invented the fucking telephone. He was just a fucking shady ass businessman who exploited people and profited off of them. The video I made called When Hearing People Apologize to Deaf People has that reading of Alexander Graham Bell's memoir, and it also discusses the deaf death trend, and it'll give all of this a little bit more context. I think I've done over a dozen videos on Alexander Graham Bell alone at this point, as well as all of the My Deaf History Lesson videos will give you more context on the eugenics and genocide discussion I was mentioning. And I've done like 5 or 6 videos on that deaf death joke trend, so yeah, I definitely would recommend going to look for those as well. Who do you think should get credit for inventing the telephone?